You're listening to The Switch. I'm your host, Stephanie Shaw. Hey, welcome to The Switch. I'm Stephanie Shaw. I'm a multi-certified holistic nutrition coach who, after finding no success with the 18 doctors and 2 world-renowned healthcare facilities I visited, decided I needed to make a switch and take my health into my own hands. Now I'm obsessed with you getting hormonally balanced and emotionally aligned. This podcast is about education, empowerment, and simple no-cost strategies you can implement right now. I'm so excited to be here with you to talk about all things health, beauty, clean living, and mindset. Ready to take your mind and body to the next level? It's time to make the switch. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Switch. I am so excited to be here today with Karolina Rządkowolska. I practiced that, everyone. I'm like patting myself on the back because I think I got it right. Did I get it right?
You did, Stephanie. Thank you. I have a crazy Polish last name and you rocked it.
My win for the day. I love it. Karolina, I am so excited to have you here on The Switch. This is going to be such an interesting conversation. So when I heard what you do, I'm like, oh, wait, I've never heard of anyone that focuses on that. This is genius. And it's so necessary. So I'm going to give a little bit of an introduction, and then I will ask that you tell folks who you are and what you do. That works for you?
Sounds great.
Perfect. So Karolina is an alcohol-free coach who helps powerful and health-conscious women make alcohol insignificant in their lives. Talk to us about that.
Sure. So we have so many old-fashioned paradigms of change. And when it comes to alcohol, a lot of our ideas around it are super, super outdated and rooted in modalities from the past. In the past, you hit rock bottom, you got DUIs, you had a severe, severe drinking addiction. And only then do you raise your hand and go to AA or go to rehab and make changes in your life. And yet we don't recognize that alcohol is a toxic, carcinogenic subject to anyone who drinks it, right? And there's a point of intuition, especially when you're very health-minded and mindful about your lifestyle, that maybe alcohol and the habits you picked up when you're in your 20s stop serving who you want to become in your future. And it's okay. It doesn't matter what your drinking habits look like to just reevaluate it in our lives. It's just one of those things that we don't talk about very often. It's very taboo. And if you do talk about it, you're scared you're going to get slapped with a label. But why don't we talk about alcohol? Most of us pick up drinking when we're teenagers, we have completely different identities there. We form habits in college and maybe, when we're first launching our careers and all this stuff. And maybe those habits and that outdated relationship just isn't serving the kind of person we want to grow into being in our 30s, 40s, and 50s. And it's really about asking yourself, does this habit align with my deeper values and how I want to show up in the world? And I want to really just give permission for alcohol to be on the table for anyone who's getting an intuitive nudge to ask those deeper questions.
I love the way that you come at this. It's not in your face. This is something bad. This is something wrong. You need to stop XYZ. It's actually giving people the opportunity to sit there and think about why they're making these choices and how these choices can impact them. Can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Sure. And so, I was stuck in that mentality, like I shared with you before, that unless I was at rock bottom, I just couldn't quit drinking. And so I drank pretty heavily when I was in college and just lived this crazy party lifestyle, but I just toned down and grew up as I got older. And I got really into healthy living and I got into meditation and yoga. And yet still I drank every single weekend without fail. And it was what everyone else was doing around me. It was literally the way to unwind and let loose on the weekend. And yet every Monday morning, I woke up feeling like crap. I woke up depressed. I woke up just ashamed of myself. I woke up feeling like every healthy thing I was doing was completely washed out by the weekend. Yeah. And I just felt really low and like I wasn't making progress in my life. I felt like this for years, Stephanie, and I didn't think I was allowed to make changes because if I stopped drinking, does that mean I'm an alcoholic? I have to go to AA and all these things pop up in my life. And so that fear literally kept me stuck. And then I finally heard of this movement called Dry January. And it's just this idea that you take a month off alcohol and you focus on your health and you live healthy. And some people even donate money to these incredible causes. And I was like, wow, like that's the permission I've been looking for this entire time. Because every Monday I woke up, I wanted to take a break. And yet it was always some social occasion on my calendar that stopped me. I was like, well, I got a birthday party coming up. I got this vacation. I got this dinner party. I couldn't possibly show up and not drink. I didn't think I was allowed to. And so dry January gave me this deep permission. And as I was going through my break from alcohol, I started to recognize how much I was falling in love with this new lifestyle. I was waking up every morning feeling amazing. I had such deep sleep. I was feeling nourished. I felt so much more energetic. And I felt like I was starting to become comfortable in my skin and finding fun and happiness in new ways. Like it actually forced me to start looking for fun and adventure instead of waiting for alcohol to be like this passive, immediate gratification in my mind. I didn't stop drinking at that moment. I went back to alcohol and just like thinking I was just going to take a break and reset. And the few times I drank that February were just so disappointing. They were like, I didn't even drink that much, but it was like, I immediately got really frustrated and tired and didn't feel good. And my sleep sucked. And I was like, oh my gosh, like drinking isn't what I thought it was. It's not just this fun thing. I had really started changing my mindset. And so then I really took another break and I just started to really go deep into the reasons why I thought alcohol brought me pleasure, comfort, and benefits in the first place, and recognize whether any of those myths that I was clinging to were actually true. I did a really deep dive into what you'd call the subconscious desires behind drinking and was able to really debunk a lot of myths that I believed. And through that, I completely removed my desires for drinking. I got so excited about living an alcohol-free life. I found myself more courageous, more energetic, more inspired, more passionate, more ready to make deep connections with people because I was really fully present. And I started challenging my own limiting stories. Within a few short months, I launched my own business and I launched a podcast and I ran a half marathon. And it's like all of these things I had been telling myself for years that weren't possible for me. So it was like the one domino that if I could change this in my life, well, why can't I do anything?
That is incredible. That is incredible. And I love the fact that you consciously sat there and thought about the long-term and short-term impact that it had, not only on the way that you act, but the way that you react to things as well. Talk to us a little bit about some healthy habits and some of the health benefits of not drinking.
Yeah, these are really cool because just 1 month, like 4 weeks, they've done a lot of studies on this through dry January participants. That has massive healing effects on your body.
Wow.
So 1 month of alcohol will heal your liver fat by about like 15%, which is insane.
1 month, not
1 month.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Wow. I thought you were going to say 1 year after you stop.
No, these are all 1 month. Within 2 weeks, your brain gray matter starts to grow and neurons also start to regenerate because, as like with any habit, you're constantly using the same neural pathways to do these habit loops in our lives. And when you start going outside of that box, not only is the neurons regenerating because you're forming new neural pathways and connections in your mind and synapses, but also because alcohol is not killing any of them off, it's actually helping that grow, spur that growth. Blood pressure usually goes down within just 2 weeks off alcohol. And one thing that's really surprising that most people don't form a connection around is cholesterol. So they have studies that show that average percentage or average number of points that your cholesterol can drop is 20 points within just 1 month off of alcohol. And, you're looking at me right now. I'm a healthy-ish woman in my 30s. I grew up with, ever since I got my first test in my 20s, I had really high cholesterol. And I had no idea what was going on because I wasn't like massively obese. I was still pretty young. I was like, what is happening here? It was above 200, 220, 240 for most of the tests that I got in my 20s. And when I got my first test after I stopped drinking and took a break from alcohol, my cholesterol dropped by 51 points.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God. I have never, ever heard that statistic before or that relationship between. So is that hard alcohol like, gin, vodka, or is that beer, or it's that any type of alcohol or just specific types?
It's any type, because especially with cholesterol, like obviously alcohol doesn't have saturated fats in it or anything like that, but it does increase our inflammation. And so, when we're talking about 20 points off your cholesterol, like most the majority of Americans in their elder years are on like cholesterol lowering medication. And if you could take a break for just 1 month and drastically reduce these numbers, I mean, it's worth experimenting, I think, at least.
So too, for folks watching it on YouTube, I'm like, my head's down. That's because I'm taking notes. I'm like, I cannot believe this. I know a couple people I probably need to have a conversation with. And speaking of that, like, so how does someone recognize that they may need your type of support?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm really interested in removing the blocks that we form through societal conditioning and other people's expectations. And alcohol is just one of those. We start drinking as teenagers to fit in, to prove our independence, to rebel. And then we continue picking it up because it's the behavior, the normative behavior of the in crowd. So it's how we belong. It's how we commiserate, socialize, celebrate, all these things. And yet that societal conditioning can really keep us stuck. And I'm really interested in helping women find their most authentic expression of themselves and living a life that's fully aligned to their values. So when your values are something like health and mindfulness and grace and purpose, sometimes you can recognize that alcohol doesn't allow me to show up in that way and really, really embodying those values. And you don't have to be a heavy drinker for that to be painful. Because anytime we're living our life out of alignment with our values, there's this cognitive dissonance because we're saying one thing's important, but we're not living that way. And so I will actually work with women who you would consider to be pretty moderate drinkers, no more than 1 or 2 drinks occasion, and yet still this habit, they're still locked into it, right? And so it's really not about the quantity for me. And in fact, the statistics show that about 60% of all drinkers do drink above the health guidelines. I mean, just look at it in common culture. Most people don't stop at 1 drink. That's actually not the norm. That's kind of the minority who does. And so 60% of people have what you could call a slightly complicated relationship with alcohol. Only about 5 to 10% are actually addicted. And everything we talk about when it comes to alcohol is usually routed for solutions for that 5 to 10%. And that's wonderful. And I think it's amazing that we have all those. But what about everyone in the middle?
Yeah, I like that. So, because actually that was a segue to my next question. I'm like, so what's the difference between the work that you do and the work that would be done with something like AA? But I guess I can see that difference because AA may be when you're in that category of being an alcoholic or not being able to control your behavior. That's one thing. But being in another, not even category, but being in another segment of the population where you just want to make yourself more healthy, eliminate drinking, not feel the need to be a social drinker, not falling into what people consider normal. Those are the types of people that can have this conversation with you to help them empower themselves to make those decisions.
Yes, absolutely. And I find that, most of the women I work with, again, are very holistic to begin with, very mindful, healthy. And this is like that one incongruence in their life. It's that one place that they feel like a fraud or a hypocrite because they don't have as much poise and self-control around as they wish they did. And yet everything else is going, great. And so sometimes I've even heard really sad stories of someone, having a very successful life and just things, their drinking problem not being that severe. They go to AA and it's just like they just don't blend in at all, because that is an incredible program, but it's free and it's really kind of like that solution for people at the very end of the spectrum.
Right.
And so like, I think it's just fascinating that we have so many other solutions today. I do the work that I do, but there's this whole sober curious movement out there, of just giving permission to anyone to reevaluate the role of alcohol in their lives for any reason, like you want to be a better role model for your kids. That's an incredible reason. You want to get healthier. That's a great reason. You want to really start discovering more like passion in your life and get out of the rut of just drinking over a stressful day, like we have stressful days and everybody does, right? But imagine if you had a stressful day and then you drank over it that night, you could repeat that cycle for the rest of your life and never actually make any changes into why you're not fulfilled and so stressed out in the first place,
Yeah.
And it's this beautiful transformation of just taking a break. It's like taking a pause, reevaluating some things and making these beautiful shifts in your life to design the kind of life you want to live, to find more joy, find more passion, find more connection. And I'm so amazed sometimes my clients will have the most massive transformations where they leave behind jobs that aren't fulfilling them and they start their own businesses and they, start their own podcast or write a book and just do really, really cool things in this world. And it was really that break from alcohol that gave them the dream really bubbling up in the first place and also the audacity to go after it.
I like that a lot. So like in my business, part of what I do is help women eat differently. And what I found is it's not just about the eating, it's about incorporating some behavioral changes. And you've touched on some of those, but talk to us a little bit about behavioral changes that the women you work with, they have or need to undertake.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think like even with food as well, there's the behavior, but there's also the mindset,
Mhm.
right? So the behavior is a result sometimes of the mindset that we have. So if we think that we're treating ourselves or we think that we're relaxing with a certain food or a certain drink, it's going to be really hard to change that behavior because that's a very ingrained habit loop response. Like, this is
Right.
how I relax, this is how I treat myself. So sometimes being able to go deeper into the mindset and into changing the mental neuro associations we have with alcohol in the first place is where the behavior change then becomes much easier. So when I work with someone, we'll start taking a break or not for a little bit, just so we can really start getting very mindful and assessing and learning about themselves. But, we really start with what I call limiting beliefs around alcohol in the first place. So I'll ask women I work with, like, why do you like to drink? And they'll give me a list of, 10 reasons. And we ruthlessly go through those reasons and see if they hold up to even scientific truth. And also if that belief is serving them or disempowering them. So, for
Mm.
example, this idea that alcohol relaxes us, it's a complicated one, but there's so much science that shares how much stress hormones like cortisol, adrenaline, and dynorphin that actually alcohol induces the brain to release. So the alcohol, drinking it, literally signals your brain to release more stress hormones. So if
What?
we drink because we think that alcohol is relaxing us, it's literally doing the opposite.
So I'm going to make a billboard like with that. Do you think alcohol relaxes you? No, it does not. You're right. So I hear that so often. Oh, I get home from work. I just need to relax and unwind. I just have one drink, maybe two. But you're saying that it's exactly the opposite.
Yeah, and if you've ever, especially it's interesting how we feel that effect, but
Mhm.
we'll often feel it like 4 or 5 hours after drinking, so most people feel very sluggish and tired and wired and out of it. And there's this whole term called anxiety, which means you wake up in the morning and you feel really anxious. And a lot of times people can wake up in the middle of the night, and that's those stress hormones also waking them up. Alcohol raises your REM sleep cycles, so it just makes completely fragmented. But when you take the whole experience, the 48-hour experience, not just the 20-minute buzz, it
Right.
really scientifically is not relaxing you over time.
Yeah, you didn't hear. I'm learning so many new things today. I don't drink. I've never been a drinker, but I'm learning stuff that I can share with my clients. I can share with people that I know, and it just some interesting facts. I like this. So I was looking at some information, and you say drinking becomes a side note when you are building a life of your dreams. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I think we fall into these patterns where, for me, for example, I drink every single weekend. I was not a daily drinker, but it was like very celebratory. Like, it's Friday, I can't wait to like have my drinks, go out. And what I didn't recognize was that every week I was waiting for the weekend. I couldn't wait for the weekend, and it was like the only time that I felt happy with my life.
Mm,
And I was like, what I realized, what I was drinking over the things of my life that I didn't like. Why was I so unfulfilled during the week?
mm,
Why did I hate my Monday through Thursdays? You know what I mean?
yeah,
Why was the weekend so exciting for me? And I know we have this cultural kind of norm that everybody doesn't like their jobs and then they live for the weekend. But
right,
why is that?
right.
Like, why do we settle for that? And so I started having really deeper questions over what was I called to do on this planet? And why did I put those dreams on the back burner? I grew up as a little girl. I always wanted to be an author. And I
Mm.
used to write short stories and poems when I was a little kid. And then as I became a drinker in my 20s, it just dried up. It just
Oh,
stopped writing.
wow.
I always wanted to own my own business, but I had this limiting belief that I could never be an entrepreneur. And as I really started pushing myself out of my comfort zone and taking a break, and I see this happen to all my clients as well,
Mhm.
is instead of chasing this momentary immediate gratification in the form of a drink, in the form of a 20-minute buzz, you start transferring that chase for a fulfilling life, which is really what we're all after,
Right.
love and connection and purpose and meaning, into actually building that into your life.
Nice.
And it's not black and white, and it's not overnight, and it doesn't happen with like the flip of a switch, but you start becoming intentional about designing the life that you truly want to live. And I went from working an unfulfilled job in a dead-end career, being super envious of other people's lives,
Mm.
to now I have a book coming out with HarperCollins. I'm achieving the biggest dream on my heart since I was a little girl. I have a thriving business. I work for myself. I make a difference in women's lives. I travel and work from anywhere in the world that will allow me. I am fully vaccinated, so I've been traveling a bit now. And I'm obsessed with this new life of growth and service. And I
Yeah.
can see why I was so unfulfilled before.
Yeah.
I can see why I was so jealous of other people before.
Yeah, I love the change. Those are so impactful. And it wasn't like you were, fall to the side of the road alcoholic or drunk or whatever. Like, and I'm, maybe not saying the PC words here, but that wasn't it. You were a weekend drinker, and just by changing that, you changed your health, you changed your mindset, you changed your career. You're fulfilling dreams that you've had as a young girl just with those simple changes. Now, there may be some people who are listening that, it may not be them, but it may be someone that they know, someone that they love. Is there a way that you can help them maybe gently suggest or point them in the direction of you and the type of service that you offer women?
Absolutely. So that's an interesting one, right? Because like change comes from autonomy, right? And we want to feel in control of our life's choices.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think the best way that we can actually help inspire other people is to role model the changes that we wish to see in our lives.
Yes.
So, maybe someone drinks too much and we recognize that. But every time we host dinner parties, we are free flowing with the wine, So,
Mhm.
like, even, suggesting to that person that, hey, I'm taking a break for dry January literally might be the inspiration and the shift in the worldview that they might need to be inspired to make a change too.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's easier to kind of walk the talk before, like telling someone what to do. But there's also some incredible books. So my book's going to be out in January of 2022. I recommend it. It's called Euphoric. But until then, I'm obsessed with the book, This Naked Mind, because it really helps dive into some of the limiting beliefs we have around why we drink in the first place. So
Right.
if anyone, has a family or friend member that they would want to just recommend a book to, it's an easy do. Obviously too, I'll share with you my website at the end if anyone wants to check that out. But I really think sometimes just starting to step in to be the role model that we wish to be makes it so much easier, because the person who is struggling with alcohol see a world where everybody drinks, and
Mm.
they see a world where, how could I possibly fit into this world if I do not drink? How could I possibly go to this family reunion and if I'm the only one in the kids' corner drinking an apple juice? How could I possibly, you know, live a life as a non-drinker? And it feels like a life of deprivation, but like the opposite is true, and they need to see role models modeling that.
Yeah, there's so many similarities in people in the way that they feed their body food as well as with, I don't want to be in the corner at the family reunion, not being able to eat the ribs and the cake and so forth. So the same with the drinking. Yeah, there's tons of similarities. I love that. And you mentioned your book, and I'm so excited you did. I want you to tell us all about it. And then if there's an opportunity to pre-purchase the book, just give us all the scoop.
Awesome, thank you. I'm like still pinch myself today that this is happening. My book is being published by HarperCollins. I can't believe it.
Yes.
It's called Euphoric: Ditch Alcohol and Gain a Happier, More Confident You. And it's really, I'm really trying to be one of the first books out there that really tackles that middle ground, that medium, normal-ish drinker, no
Mhm.
one on the side of the road. And I don't mean that in any stereotypical way either. I just mean that there's so many books and programs already talking about that. And
Right.
really, it's the middle that has been left behind, the big majority part of the bell curve. And I really want to position the alcohol-free lifestyle as something that any health-minded, mindful person would want to try. This isn't about changing and being never drinking again. It's not like that. It's experimenting with a different lifestyle to see what makes you feel better, to see what helps you go for your bigger dreams and achieve your bigger goals. You know, you have so many incredible health topics on your show, like from plant-based eating to certain different lifestyle changes. And it's not like everybody has to adopt those, right?
Right.
But what if they deserve to just try it? And if it makes them feel 1,000% better, isn't that like such a beautiful win-win?
Mm.
Nobody has to take a break from alcohol, certainly. But what if we all deserve to see if we like that life better that way, you know? And we decide to start drinking less or really make it a special occasion thing or not drink at all. It's like a permission that right now in our very booze-centric world is really not given. You know, we have alcohol at every social occasion.
Everywhere.
People literally ask you questions why you're not drinking.
No. You're right. What's wrong? And then if you're younger, are you pregnant? Like, what's going on? Why aren't you drinking? No, this is a choice.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're right. So,
And so my book really helps just like share not only the benefits of going alcohol free, taking a break
mhm.
from I like to call the mind, the body, and the spirit, but then also gives them an 8-week plan of doing their first, alcohol free break, or really just affirming that lifestyle and kind of doing a lot of the really deep introspective work that I did to change my subconscious desires for themselves. Because like a craving, a desire is really the lack of control. We're being controlled by something else, something very primal and instinctive and habit looped and reptilian in our brains. It's not really decided by our conscious selves, our higher selves. Even I think with someone craving a donut kind of a thing, it's very similar. And when we can find ourselves unraveling that subconscious desire and getting back into having our higher selves be in control, we then get to decide. We have the freedom, we can still eat the donut sometimes, but it's not out of necessity. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. That I was on interviewing with someone earlier today, and we were talking about eating habits and so forth. And I said, well, because I had pizza last night. And she's like, what? I'm like, so it's not about that total eliminating anything. It's about being mindful about what you're doing, knowing why you're doing. And I didn't eat the pizza because there was some hidden desire. I ate the pizza because I wanted to eat the pizza. So, you know what I mean? So being able to work through all of that. Yeah, I think that's really important. I love that. I'm so excited about the book. So this will be an awesome Valentine's Day gift. Replace the bubbly with the book.
I love it. Yes.
Tagline, replace the bubbly with the book. I'm always trying to get people to get it. I like a hashtag t-shirt. So like, I'll let you use that one for a t-shirt.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
You're quite welcome. Just send me a t-shirt. Two more questions for you. Actually three, but two that you'll have to think a little bit about maybe. One thing that my audience can walk away with that they can immediately implement. What would that be?
Ooh, absolutely. So if they're excited about changing their relationship with alcohol or taking a break, I would just commit to like 5 days. And, for some people, that's a lot. For some other people, it's like not a big deal. But 5 days of really reevaluating their habits and really asking themselves when their craving comes up, like how they can literally start giving themselves permission to relax in new ways, to treat themselves in new ways, and to do nice things for themselves. So
Mhm.
taking a break from alcohol for me, I think it answers some really, really deep questions. Some deep questions about what do I really need? Because oftentimes a lot of our negative behaviors are these very misguided ways that we're just trying to meet our needs,
Right.
our needs for comfort, our needs for security, our needs maybe even for adventure, our needs for connection. And so it's not like anyone's ever wrong, when they do reach for something unhealthy or a drink to try to soothe themselves. It's just a maladaptive kind of thing that we learned. And so you can kind of start using this process of trying to really uncover your deeper needs and emotions. I think a lot of type of coping mechanisms also really allow you to numb or distract your thoughts and emotions. And it's the very emotions that we're actually meant to experience so that we can make the changes in our lives, to make shifts, to express them. And so getting into a place where you allow yourself to express your emotions is powerful.
Yeah.
Allowing yourself to cry, allowing yourself to like be angry and punch a pillow, allowing yourself to really feel the feelings that you want to suppress with social media scrolling or even boredom. I mean, how many times do we love to escape boredom because it feels uncomfortable?
Yes.
And yet if we weren't bored, we would also never be driven to create and to innovate. Like that is where the mother of invention comes from, is boredom. That's how our great inventions are here in this planet,
Yeah, nothing like the silence in a shower to come up with a great idea.
Exactly. And that's like a great, people always come to me and say like, well, what do I do if I don't drink? I'll be bored. It's like amazing. Your brain is craving that internal stimulation, So I think in those 5 days, really start assessing what your needs are. If you had a hard day, what else can you give yourself that would feel comforting, and also not come with any negative baggage the next day? There's so many great ideas. I'm sure you know a lot too. What can you do to express your emotions, and how can you start really forming a closer connection with yourself instead of kind of shutting off, every time these kind of emotions come up? You'll learn so much about yourself by taking even a short break from alcohol. And if 5 days feels good, go to 30. You'll experience life-changing benefits.
Don't wait till January. You can start now. Tell me, so I always ask everyone, each guest, what was their switch? What was the one thing that made you the person that you are today?
Oh gosh. I mean, I think that taking my break was my biggest switch. I used to have a completely different personality, and that's kind of weird to say because in many ways, like we we are similar versions of our past selves, and yet I used to be envious, insecure, shy, very, very introverted. I still am an introvert, but I would display it in a very withdrawn way in the world. And taking that break really was the switch for me. But it wasn't just, I guess, removing alcohol from the equation. It was looking at the beliefs, the limiting stories, the blocks that I had, and realizing that everything that I see other people having with success in their lives is not about their external situation. It's literally about the internal beliefs.
Wow.
So when I found personal growth and I found a process to be able to start shifting my mindset from who I was into who I wanted to become, that was like my golden ticket. So other than taking a break from alcohol, I guess just reading, doing courses, just getting really, really subdued and into the personal growth field really did change my life.
I love that. I have so enjoyed talking with you. We're going to have to figure out a way to expand this conversation. I love this. Thank you so much. I did. I really enjoyed this conversation with you, and I'm sure the audience will as well.
Well,
So
thank you.
can you tell us how we can get in contact with you? We'd like to learn more information.
So you can find me at my euphoriaf.com. And I have a free 5-day course that I'd love to offer your listeners. You'll find it under the Start Here button on euphoricaf.com. And it's a free 5-day course that will not only walk you through what I talked about taking your break, but really uncovering some of the limiting beliefs, the conditioning we receive around alcohol, and just asking yourself really cool, deep questions. Questions that aren't like embarrassing to ask. Like I think that only the most intuitive, wise, and brave people reevaluate the role of alcohol in their lives. Because otherwise, we just go with what everyone else is doing. That is never a good reason to do anything. Right?
I like that. You said the most intuitive, brave, and what was the third one?
Wise.
I like that. I like that a lot. So I'm going to ask you to repeat your website one more time. We had a little glitch, and I want to make sure that folks heard that.
Absolutely. It's euphoricaf.com.
Perfect. And we'll also be able to find out more about your book if they go to your website, correct?
Absolutely. Yes. The pre-order should be up in a few months. So I don't have a link for that yet, but can't wait.
All right, perfect. And if this doesn't air until that time, I'll make sure that I put a link in the bottom for everyone. So you guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Karolina, for being here. I appreciate it. And everyone, here's to your health. I am so excited for you because you just finished another episode of The Switch, which means you are the fierce person I already knew you were. If you're ready to join an exclusive group of other fierce high performers like you, a group where you can bounce ideas off one another and ask questions, be sure to join our exclusive Facebook community. You can find the link below.